right, so if you are seeing this video, thank you for joining me again. If you saw my introductory video for this series, Storytime with Tay, I am Amanda, also known as Ante, and I am taking some accountability and hoping that you'll be accountable and go along on this journey with me of reading the Bible and recapping these stories, these pieces of literature. And let me just, if you didn't catch the first video, I am not looking at the Bible for purposes of Bible study. I really am looking at this as a piece of literature, which is what it is at its very base level. And I'm just recapping the stories within it. So this time, this story, today's story, I got my little blanket, and if you saw the last video, then yes, I'm filming this on the same day. I'm doing the story of Abraham. And Abraham's story is it's long. It is a long one, so buckle up. But it's a super interesting one because, wow, did he go on a trip? And his trip starts pretty later. It starts later in life. We just gonna say that. To give a little context, the story of Abraham, I am going from when he was introduced in Genesis. Give me just a second here. I'm looking at my notes. Genesis 11, verse 27. So that is the book of Genesis, chapter 11, verse 27. And I am going until he dies in the book of Genesis, chapter 25, verse 11. So again, for those of you interested in following along, this is Genesis 11:27 to 25:11. The story of Abraham. There are some other characters whose stories I'm sure you've heard of, and when we get there, I will tell you. Most of you probably know who it is anyway, but if you don't, it's a whole thing. And we'll go over that character story at a later date. But the book of Genesis was written by Moses, of Let My People Go fame, that Moses. Yes, he wrote, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Again, I am still learning. I am no one's biblical scholar. I literally am just reading this as a piece of literature, but I wanted to do a little bit of research because I do have a healthy curiosity. Sips coffee real quick, excuse me. I do have a little bit of a healthy curiosity, so I do like to understand some of the stuff that I'm reading. But it's my understanding that Moses wrote 4 books in the Bible. He wrote this one, so Genesis, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and Exodus, which Exodus is where we meet Moses. This is Moses' story, but he did write these other ones. So with that in mind, just know who wrote this story of Abraham. And with that said, shall we get started? Pull up your little comfy blankie for story time with Tay. Abraham, his story starts, or we're introduced to Abraham when he's in his 70s, and we're introduced to him living with his father, his wife Sarai. Oh, excuse me. Let me backtrack for just a moment. This story, Abraham is known by 2 names. He is known in the beginning, pre the covenant with God, as Abram, and his wife Sarah is known as Sarai, also pre-covenant. Post-covenant, he is known as Abraham, which is father of many nations, and Sarai becomes Sarah, who is his counterpart, mother of nations. And so if you hear me use them interchangeably, they are the same people. And there is no need to be confused if you're reading along. Abram and Abraham are the same people as are Sarah and Sarai. So I just wanted to put that out there for anyone who may not be following or gets a little confused. Hence why I'm doing this segment. So, backtrack. Abraham is living the millennial life. It's him, it's his wife, his 2 brothers, are living out there in Ur, I believe is the place that they're living. They're living in Ur, Ur. And he's also living there with his son Lot of Sodom and Gomorrah fame. And it's gonna come up. It's gonna come up. So they're all living in Ur, they're chilling, and somebody murders his brother. And by his brother, Abram's brother, one of Abram's brothers, Lot's father. So Lot's daddy, Abram, Lot, his wife Sarah, and their father, they all pack it up. They like, all right, we gotta go. We can't stay here. We don't like the neighborhood. It's time to go. So they decide to head towards Canaan. And again, if I'm mispronouncing these names, please forgive me. A human, please let me know where I can find the correct pronunciation of them, and I will correct them moving forward. But again, not a biblical scholar, just somebody who picked up a book. Now back to the segment. Abram and crew, they all pack it up. They decide to head towards Canaan, but they don't make it to Canaan. Somewhere along the way, where is not terribly important. They settle, we'll just say somewhere in what is considered modern day Iraq. They settle, and his father dies at age 205. Abram's 75, or about 74, 75 years old. His father's 205. I just want you to keep those numbers in the back of your mind for context as we get down to this story, or we get through this story. And Sarai, is about 10 years younger than him. So if he's in his 70s, she's in her 60s. So they've lived a good life. Well, they've lived a life. I don't know what their life was like prior to, but we just gonna assume they lived a good life. They was living their life. They just said this murder happens. They decide to leave. They move to this new town. They take care of their father. And at 205, Daddy dies. After Daddy dies, God goes, hey fam. That's me knocking. Hey fam, I want you to get up and move. Go where I tell you. You pack all your people, pack all your little village, pack your village people, and we gonna go. And Abram was like, all right, cool, weird voice that's talking to me. Cool, I'll do that. And he does. He moves his family. So now his family, or his group, consists of his wife, Sarai, his nephew, Lot, and all of the people that work under them. We'll just call them, they're referred to as their slaves, but not the chattel version that America has made famous, where people that look like me, not that version of slavery. But they pack all their servants / slaves and all their belongings, and they head towards Canaan again. And once they get there, God shows it's like, right here, this is where I want you to go. Here's the thing though, there are people living there, the Canaanites actually. And so Abraham is like, here God, this way you want me to go. All right. He's like, but there's people, you promised me the land, but there's people living here. God said, don't sweat that, I got that. That's a me thing. Don't you worry about it. But this is where I want you to go. Yes, this is going to be your land. This is going to be for your descendants, your progeny, your peoples. This is what I'm promising you. And Abram was like, oh, okay, all right, cool, sure. So he builds an altar in this land, in Canaan, where God promised him this land, or promised this land to his progeny. And then he moves down the block a little bit between Bethel and Ai. It's spelled AI, but I'm pretty sure it's pronounced differently because language was different and the Bible has been translated many times. So Bethel and Ai, again, please correct me if I'm saying it wrong. he sets up camp there, builds an altar to God, because now he and God, they homies, they talking. I'm sure his people were like, he tripping, but all right, whatever, cool. Abram going Abram. We're gonna leave it at that. A couple years later, or some time passes. I won't say a couple years later because it doesn't specify, but some time passes, and this famine hits. And it's a severe, the Bible describes it as a severe famine. So imagine it being equal to the food shortages that we're experiencing now, like supply chain stuff that we're experiencing now, and him being in this remote spot where Amazon don't be Amazon, and it's like a grocery desert, you know. Ain't that many groceries out there. So he and his family, they pack it up because they was like, nah, but we need food though. So they head to Egypt. And when I tell you, Abram and Sarai did a flim flam scam, they was straight flim flam scamming. So they get to, before they get into Egypt, Abram knows how the Egyptians are. They Mr. Steal Your Girl, excuse me, out there. So he tells Sarai, he's like, hey, you a fine little tenderoni. You gonna get me killed, girl. So when we get there, if they ask, I'm your brother, I'm not your husband. Which is technically, let's just pause for a moment. It's technically not a lie. He is both husband and brother because they are related and siblings through his father, but not through their mother. So they are half siblings. So he didn't lie, he just didn't lead with the whole that's my wife thing. So let's get back to the story. So Abram was like, yeah, so if anybody asks, I'm your brother, so that we can get, so that I don't die, and then we get hooked up with some stuff. Cause girl, you fine. I know I married a baddie. They gonna kill me if I die. They gonna kill me to get to you. So instead of them killing me, they gonna pay me. So they get into Egypt. She's like, boy, you crazy. All right. Sure enough, the Egyptians see her. They like, see, she fine, she bad. Let's go tell Pharaoh. So Pharaoh hear about this baddie, and he like, bring it to me. And sure enough, they ask. They like, hey, husband? She's like, nah, that's my brother. What y'all talking? That's my brother. So they're like, all right, cool. Come to the palace with us. So the whole crew gets put on because Sarai is fine. She must have been Angela Bassett. She must be Angela Bassett bad. That's all I'm gonna say. Because she's 6'5". She about 6'5", 6'6" years old. She bad. She real bad one. Gorgeous. So things are moving. They getting stuff. They getting the VIP treatment, red carpets. They getting all kinds of stuff, free swag. They getting goats and all of that. Whatever wealth was to them back in the day. I'm assuming it's livestock, because currency as we see it now wasn't a thing back then. Not really. So they're getting all this stuff. And then one day, as Pharaoh's trying to hook up with Sarai, he's like, all right, I done gave you all this stuff. I done hooked you up. Girl, it's time for you to break me off. God went, no. and strikes down the plague on Pharaoh. And all this lemony snicket diseases and all kinds of stuff starts hitting him. He's like, why I got these boils? What is going on here? And he starts to do the math, and the math start adding up. He's like, she fine, but she ain't boils and diseases fine. So calls up Abram, is like, yo, what y'all do to me? What you and your sister do to me? I don't like this. We got all kinds of diseases. The kingdom all messed up. My family all screwed up. We got boils and all this nastiness. What happened? What did y'all do? And he's like, you know what? Never mind. Y'all just get on out my house. Get on out my house. Get on out of here. So they get put out. They get to keep all the stuff that they've amassed, all the wealth that they've amassed. So they imagine coming in with a little bit of stuff, like, you know, a couple cows, a few little rams, goats, coming out with a whole farm. So they pack it up, everybody leaves, and they head back to the original camp over there between Bethel and Ai. When they get back, they have so much stuff that they've amassed so much that it can't accommodate everyone anymore. So Lot's people, because remember, everybody on the crew got put on. So Lot's people and Abram's people, they start having issues. They start fighting because ain't enough space. It's them, in addition to the people that were originally living there, the Canaanites and a couple other people who have come into the land here and there and settled. So they having like, we just imagine the Jets and the Sharks. Like they having those kind of disputes. So they were like, Lot was like, all right, we got a problem. And Abram, being the man that he is, he's like, I don't want no problems. He's a man of peace. He's like, cool. If we can't coexist, we can just split up. You go east, I go west. You go west, I go east. You pick whichever way you want to do it. But since there's not enough space, we just got to separate. So he leaves it up to Lot, and Lot looks to, I believe it is the east, to the neighborhood of Sodom and Gomorrah. The infamous, God said throw the whole thing in the trash. Reset button, Control Alt Delete Sodom and Gomorrah. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna go that way. And it's the nicer, it on the outside it appears to be the nicer of the two pieces of real estate. And Abram was like, all right, cool, whatever. So Lot and his people, they pack it up, they head towards Sodom and Gomorrah. We don't hear from them for a minute. And Abram and his people go the opposite direction, and God is like, come here. So he pried, and let me show you something. So he pried rocks, Abram. He's like, everything the light touches is yours, Simba. Everything. You look east, you look west, you look north, you look south. That's all you and your peoples. All the stars in the sky, if you can count them, that's how many people you got. And Abram's like, oh, nobody got time to be doing all that counting. I believe you. I got you. All right. If you say it is what it is, then that's what it is. So they go on about their business. But remember, Lot then moved to the infamous Sodom and Gomorrah, that neighborhood, that hood. So a little after he lives there, war breaks out. And Lot's hood loses. Like, it's this huge war amongst like 10 kings. I'm talking, it's like Game of Thrones style warring. 10 kings, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah and team up with like 2 or 3 other kings, and then there's these other kings who are in land that's a little further out, and they beefing, and the whole war, and it's like the battle of the, if you remember Game of Thrones, that big battle is like the Battle of the Bastards, where everybody was out on that field, and Sansa and her crew like came out of nowhere, and it was a whole thing. Like, imagine that level of chaos. That's what war was like for them. And Sodom and Gomorrah's people lose. So Lot, as part of the bounty, the booty, as it is, of spoils of war, they get taken. They get Liam Neeson. And word gets back, one of the people escaped, and they come back and they tell Abram what happened, and Abram was like, I don't like it. Let me go save this fool. So he hooty-hoos his whole crew. Like, he gathers his whole crew. They like, let's ride. Let's ride. Let's ride. So they go ride out. They go save Lot's hood. Save his people. And the most random stranger pops up. Like, didn't know this king wasn't in no war. He wasn't in the war. He wasn't a part of Lot's crew. But this random king from Salem shows up, and he's like, you know how everybody has that uninvited guest? At least this guest, he was like, I'm gonna throw y'all a party. Let's party, y'all. So he throws Abram this huge feast, him and his people, to celebrate this victory. And Abram's like, everybody's like, who is this cat? But Abram, being the gracious host that gracious guest that he is, he's like, well, thank you, kind sir, weird stranger, dude, Thanks. So he gives him a tenth of his possessions. And if you are familiar with Christianity, a tithe is a tenth. So I would imagine, I don't have any hard evidence, but I would imagine that's one of the standard bearers for modern day tenth income. But Abram, he's like, here you go. Then the king of Sodom to just kind of thank him and gather up all of his belongings, because remember, this fool lost, and he got the nerve to be like, well, how we gonna split this? I'm sure Abram was like, bruh, you I came in, but it's cool. So God had warned. God is in the background of this. God is totally done with. Remember, I said, he said, God, Sodom and Gomorrah, throw the whole thing away, reset. God cannot stand Sodom and Gomorrah. He's like, I don't want none of that stank on you, Abram. Don't you touch it. So, to keep in lockstep with God, Abram, when the king of Sodom is like, yeah, so you take this and I'm gonna take all the people. You take the money, I'm gonna take the people. Abram was like, I was warned about you. You keep all of it. I just let me have what my people used, and then the rest of it, I was warned about you. God said no. No. I don't want him claiming that he owe you nothing. I'm sorry, that you owe him nothing. We ain't got no ties, so I'm just gonna take what was used, and then the rest, that's all you, bro. You can have it. Cause little skimmy scammy flim flammy who then lost the war, now he talking about, yeah, let me have the people, you can keep the stuff. What you gonna do with the people, fam? Anyway, so they get all that settled, and then shortly thereafter, I'm sure God was like, Abram, you all right, bruh. You all right. I like this Abram cat. I really do. I like him. He's an all right kind of guy. So, um, after the whole Sodom and Gomorrah thing, God visits Abram in a dream. And in this dream, he once again reaffirms his promise, and he's like, uh, everything the light touches, all this land, all of this stuff, all of this wealth, I'm going to bless you because you listen to me. I'm going to bless you and your peoples. And you're going to have all of this that you can pass on to your heirs. And I'm sure by now, Abram is like, why you keep telling me you're going to pass it down to my peoples? I ain't got no peoples. Because, and I didn't mention this in the beginning, and Moses does make it a point of doing that, so he's a significantly better storyteller than I am. Sarah is childless. Sarah and Abraham are childless. She's barren. And she's in her 60s now. Well, when we were introduced to him, I'm sure by now she's like in her early 70s, late 60s, early 70s as all of this is playing out. But she's like, I can't. Abram's like, God, we can't have no kids. Why you keep telling us we gonna pass it along? I ain't no kids. So he lets him know. He's like, okay, God, you keep saying this, and I thank you for it, but how you gonna bless me? I ain't got no kids. And God was like, don't sweat that. I got you. Here's what I want you to do. And he starts naming some random stuff because they gonna do a ritual to form this covenant. So he says, go get me a goat, a ram, a heifer. For those of you that don't know what a heifer is, a female cow. Words, excuse me. He's like, go get me all three of them things, and then go get me a dove and a pigeon, and go split those. So Abraham does as he's told. He's like, all right, God, cool. All right, I'll go do it. So he does it, and it must have been one heck of a ritual, because it tuckers poor little Abram out, and he goes to sleep. And this is where God. So after Abram goes to sleep, God gives him the terms and conditions of this deal. or at least not the terms and conditions, the fine print of this deal. So he tells Abram while he sleeps, he's like, yeah, bruh, so look here. I meant what I said about the whole progeny and all that. I meant that. And they are gonna get the land. But before they do though, just know that you're not gonna live to see it. But also, it's gonna take about 400 years. And this is why. And during that 400 years, your people, they gonna be enslaved. They gonna be mistreated. But listen, Linda, I got you. The people are gonna be punished. All right, it's gonna take about 4 generations. But once I do what I do, we gonna punish them. Okay, the people that's enslaving and mistreating your progeny, right? And then I'm gonna pay them some reparations. They gonna get them some money. But it's gonna take about 4 generations and you ain't gonna see it. And then God was like, the reason I'm doing this is because the Amorites, we got to put them out. They ain't quite done. I'm building a case, okay? I'm building the case. I'm a just God, and I got to build the case. And they out here tripping, and I just want it to be airtight when I put them out. But your peoples, they gonna get reparation. They gonna make it. They gonna make it to this land. When they get here, they gonna be wealthy. They gonna get their stuff, and I'm gonna punish them old funky people that's enslaved your peoples. It's just gonna take about 400 years, all right? You ain't gonna see it. You gonna be with the ancestors. You gonna be chilling, but it's gonna happen, right? So Abraham wakes up, and he's like, okay. I'm sure when you get when you read the fine print, he's probably like, what did I do? But okay, fine. I'm going to tell my wife about this. So in comes Sarai, who thinks she knows everything. So here her husband come home. He telling her this ridiculous story. He's like, yeah, baby, so I was talking to God, right? And he had told me that we was going to have all this land. This is gonna be our land, this is it. And Sarai was probably like, do you know how crazy you sound? We can't have, I'm barren. Fool, what is you talking? I'm old and I'm barren. I ain't had no kids. I ain't gave you no babies, but I guess if that's what it is, I guess we just got to have the kids through one of the servants, through the slaves. I know Hagar. We can choose her. You can use Hagar. I'm sure she's fine. She can have kids. So we'll just have kids through her. Big mistake. So Abram, he does what his wife tells him to do. He goes and he sleeps with Hagar. Hagar conceives a child. She's pregnant now. And she becomes a nightmare. She is the baby mama from hell. Okay? She and Hagar I'm sorry, not Hagar. She and Sarai in there fussing and fighting because now she pregnant. She can't stand. Now she got Abram's first baby, the firstborn. You know how big a deal that is back then? His firstborn? It ain't his wife, it's his baby mama. She says, you can't touch me. I ain't just his baby mama. I got the firstborn. Hey. So she's a nightmare. They a whole nightmare. They in there fighting. I'm talking, it is Bravo network worthy level fighting. Okay? Not quite VH1, but certainly Bravo Housewives level fighting up in there. And Abram, I'm sure, was miserable. And at some point, Sarai comes up to him and is like, look what you did. And he probably was like, girl, you the one told this was your idea. So I'm sure that caused a little tension between the two of them, because it was, to be fair to Abram, it was Sarai's idea. However, he ain't have to go along with it. That is not what God said. God said, but then God didn't give any specifics. He just said, you're going to have kids. It was their fault, Abram and Sarai, for trying to make it happen without consulting with the chief promise maker. So it's a whole chaotic nightmare. And Abram was like, well, I ain't got nothing to do with me. That's she your slave. You handle it. Do what you gotta do. So Sarai starts treating Hagar like garbage, to the point where Hagar decides, I ain't gotta take this. I'm gonna run away. So she does. She runs away, and God finds her in the woods. I'm sorry, not the woods, the desert, and talks her into going back. He's like, listen, I know it's a nightmare. It's a little rough. I got you. But if you go back, I promise you that this son you gonna have, he gonna have his own. He gonna have his own nation. He gonna be somebody. Okay. Him gonna be somebody. And so he tells Hagar, just go back, submit to your mistress, do what you gotta do. I got you. I see it. It's not going unnoticed. This is what I'm gonna do for you and your son. When you have but word of caution, you're gonna name your son Ishmael, okay? And Ishmael's going to be, and this is a quote from the Bible, the NIV version, a donkey of a man, which means he's gonna be an ass, and he's also going to resent. He'll be hostile and resent his siblings. And so she's like, all right. So Hagar goes back. She has Ishmael, and she names him just as God instructed. And Abram, he's happy because he got a son. He's like, all right, well, this is what it is. This is how I'm having progeny. So we gonna live life. Life is being lived. Fast forward about 13 years, I want to say. Yeah, about 30 if the math is mathing. When Abram was about 99 years old, which means Sarah was about 89, life been lived. Here come God, knocking at the door again. Talking about, Abram, we need to talk. First, I need you to repent, and then we got some talking to do. So Abram does as he's asked. Because he's probably like, oh, you again? All right, well, all right, here we go. So he repents, he does as he's told, and God reaffirms him of his promise, reminds him of said promise. And Abram was like, well, I thought we already did this. And God was like, that ain't what I told you. Okay? That is not what I told you to do. I said you and your wife's child, not you and your concubine. Nut. But Abram, he's a father. He loves his son. He loves his Ishmael. So he's like, well, as you bless me and Sarai's kid, first of all, we're old. We old. Who gonna have some baby? But all right, if that's what you say it's gonna be, if you say that's what it is, that's what it is. But you ain't specify. And also look out for my son. He ain't do nothing to nobody. He was just born. So God's like, all right, fine. Yeah, I bless the boy. All right, fine. It is what it is. I bless the boy. Sure. He'll get his own nation too. But it ain't the same as you and your wife, who I was talking about. So Abram, he's like, all right, cool, God. All right, we'll do this. It sounds crazy because we're old, but sure, let's do it. So this time God gives him the terms and conditions. So he's like, hey, so for me to do this, since I got to talk to, since y'all just be doing stuff, hard-headed, plug on forehead, since y'all hard-headed and y'all like doing stuff, listen, in exchange for you doing as I've instructed and keeping your end of the deal for this covenant that we forged, I will bless you with said child and progeny and, the nation. And here's what I need you to do. I need you to go and get circumcised. You and everybody over the age of 8 days old under your house. Anybody under your voice and under your authority got to get circumcised. Slaves included. I mean everybody. If they under your authority, they got to be circumcised. If there's just one person that's not circumcised, the whole thing is null and void. And Abram was like, all right. So he expediently goes. I'm sure he goes and tells Sarai again, because she's like, oh, and I'm sorry. And God also said, and change your names. You're not Abram anymore. You are now Abraham. And your wife is no longer Sarai. She is Sarah. So Abraham says, aye. All right, God, this is what we're going to do. I got you. If you say this is what it is, I'm going to go do it. So he does as he's told. He goes and he gets circumcised. He gets Ishmael and all the slaves, everybody over there under his authority in his household over the age of 8 years old, that is male. 8 days old, that is male. They all get circumcised. So I'm sure that was an interesting conversation to have in the house. Surely it was an interesting time at the house. And from his end, God comes and visits him after a little bit of time in the form of 3 strangers that are traveling. They just randomly pop up by the house. And this happens quite a bit with God and Jesus, like in the Bible, where angels and just random people just pop up, and the people that they're talking to don't know that it's them. But God pops up, comes visit the house, or comes by the house. Abraham invites him and says, yeah, kick off your shoes, relax your feet, come chill with us, we'll give you something to eat, come hang with us, we got you, you can come relax at our crib. He tells Sarah to fix the meal. She does. She probably like, this fool. All right, so she fixes the meal or whatever, and while they out there talking, the stranger, I'm assuming the one that is God, tells him, yeah, so this time next year, you're going to have a baby. Sarai going to give birth to a son, and you need to name that son Isaac. This time next year, she's going to be giving birth. And Abraham was probably like, all right, I heard this before. All right, this is confirmation for me. Sarai, on the other hand, was like, these fools is ridiculous. I'm not having no baby. I'm old, fool. And God hears her, walks over to the tent, and is like, why are you laughing? And she was like, oh, me? I ain't no laugh. No, I didn't laugh at you. And God was like, you do know, you don't know who I am, but I heard you. Is there anything that is too hard for God? So this made Sarah feel bad. She was like, oh, all right, well, what time you leaving? And so after a little bit of time, the strangers head out. They're like, all right, we got to go. We headed over here to this here Sodom and Gomorrah. We didn't heard about this place. We got to go check it out. And Abram catches God as he's getting ready to leave, and he's like, hey, now, listen, I know it ain't the best neighborhood. The people there are a little bit deplorable. But listen, you going to punish everybody? Even the righteous ones? You going to throw the whole thing away? Will you not spare it if there are 50? And he goes from 50 down to 10 people. And God's like, okay, fine. If I can find it, cool. And then we go, they head off, and we get into the story of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. But that's another story for another day. Lot and his people, I'm going to just say it's interesting. But that's the end of Lot as he intersects with Abraham. So Abraham and Sarah, they live in life, and they decide to move again. This time they move to the Negev region, and somewhere in Gerar, between Kadesh and Shur. I am sure I'm butchering all of it, but it's all good. And this time when they go, they pull the sister thing again. Sarai I'm telling you, Sarai had to be like Angela Bassett bad, because he got him up here lying, and if he get hemmed up for lying, he running the risk of being killed for lying. But she bad. So this time, it's not the Pharaoh, it is the king of this region, and his name is Abimelech. So they do the same thing. Abimelech gets word of Sarah, and he's like, yo, she fine. All right, come on. So as he's getting ready to consummate the deal, bad stuff starts happening. His wives and his concubines, they all become barren. Just all this misfortune falls upon his house. And God visits Abimelech, because now we get real close. Because remember, he said this time next year. So Abimelech can't be Sarah's baby daddy. It got to be Abraham. Okay? It got to be Abraham. Can't risk it for the biscuit. So God shuts everything down. He said, ain't nobody reproducing. You touch her, ain't nobody reproducing. Get her out your house. I don't even want you running the risk. So he visits Abimelech in a dream and is like, yo, fam, she's married. What you doing? And Abimelech was like, God, I ain't know. I did it with a guilt-free conscience. I ain't know. So God was like, well, I'm telling you, don't touch her. She's married. She is a married woman. And if you touch her, now that you know, I will kill you. God literally says you will be dead. I kill you. You touch her, I kill you. Okay? I kill you dead. And so Abimelech was like, I don't want them problems. So he pulls Abraham, and he's like, hey, why y'all lie? Why you tell me this your sister and all this stuff going on? I don't want you ain't tell me you was married to her. And Abraham is like, listen, y'all out here cold-blooded. Y'all would have killed me. Y'all would have killed me. Okay? That's why I lie. And I mean, technically, it's not a lie. She's my sister. I mean, her daddy and my daddy is the same. So, you know, we ain't got the same mama. But her daddy and my daddy the same. So we are siblings, technically. And Abimelech is like, yo, you know what? My bad, fam. Here, take this stuff. Take these goats, these goats and these rams and these heifers and all of this. And just get on out of here. Okay, go on about your business. So he returns Sarah, and time goes on, and sure enough, Sarah has the baby. So, as God promised, Isaac arrives. Sarah and Abraham name the baby Isaac as promised. And at some point, after Sarah gives birth and she's breastfeeding the baby, she was like, this is real. Oh, excuse me. This is real crazy. I'm 90 years old. My husband is 100 and we got a baby. I am nursing a baby. This is real crazy, but okay. All right, life be lifing. All right, cool. So, a little more time goes past. Remember, Hagar and Ishmael are still in the house. They have a feast after Isaac is old enough to wane. And as promised, Ishmael lost his doggone mind. So now he at the dinner showing his whole behind. He acting up and mocking the baby and mocking Sarah and all of them. And Sarah's like, out. They got to go. They can't have none of what my baby got. He got to go. And this, of course, bothers Abraham because he's like, that's my son. It's my firstborn. I can't just... So he goes and he talks to God, and God is like, well, I mean, that's your wife. Listen to your wife. It'll be fine. Trust me. Sarai, all them, they'll be fine. It's cool. Just do what your wife say. Keep the peace, brother. Keep the peace. So he reluctantly packs them up, gives them some food. They head out to the desert, and they're no longer part of his household. While they're in the desert of Beersheba, they run out of water, and Hagar loses it. She's like, I can't watch my son. I can't do this. I can't watch my son die. You know, I can't do this. So she puts him under a bush so that he has some shade, and then she goes off and she has a full meltdown, starts crying, and God sends an angel. He probably like, this thing here. All right, so he sends an angel, and the angel talks to her. It's like, why are you crying? You know, what's going on? What's wrong, girl? And the angel, Hagar, tells them what's going on, and they don't realize they're by a well, so there's water. But Hagar tells the angel what's going on, and the angel's like, God gonna keep his promise. Your baby gonna be okay. He said that he was gonna have him a nation. He gonna have him a nation, okay? It's gonna be all right. Go get your baby. Y'all gonna be fine. So they are. A little bit after that, Hagar realizes she's by a well. They live their lives, and while Ishmael is still growing and developing, he becomes an archer, and eventually Hagar finds him an Egyptian wife. So They cool and they chilling. They ain't worried about Abraham and Sarah no more because they got their own thing going. Meanwhile, back with Abraham and his crew, he gets approached by Abimelech. There's some kind of a dispute about a well. So before they go to war, again, remember, Abraham is a man of peace. He ain't got time to be out here fighting. The only reason he went and fought and got Lot is because that's his nephew. But he don't be trying to do all that fighting and stuff. He cool. He that cat in the neighborhood. So they were like, all right. So he talks to Abimelech and he's like, listen, bro, we ain't got no problems. I get it. Because Abimelech was like, I was good to you, man. When you lied to me about you and your wife, you know what I'm saying? I was good to you. I ain't kill y'all. I ain't do nothing to y'all. So I'm just expecting you to be good to me like I was good to you. And Abraham was like, all right, cool, fam. But listen, this is what happened with the well. And Abimelech was like, oh, I didn't know all that was going on. My bad. So Abraham was like, it's cool, dog. We can, the treaty. We can be cool. So they establish a treaty. They go on about their business. Let's see. Yeah. So that region where they create the treaty over by this well is called Beersheba. That's the same desert of Beersheba, same region, whatever, for Hagar. And some time passes, some years, and God was like, let me visit my boy Abraham. I ain't talked to him in a minute. Let's see if he's still good. You know, let me test him one more time. See if he gonna keep his word. All right, all his people circumcised. He did what he's supposed to do there. So he hits up Abraham. He's like, hey, I want you to go sacrifice your son. Go sacrifice Isaac. Abraham was like, God, what? You want me to do? But this is the baby that you... Okay. All right, God, cool. All right, well, let's pack it up. Let's go. So Abraham packs up Isaac, and Isaac this time is old enough to understand things and talk and know what's going on. So he packs him up, take him out to the altar by the mountains, and they get there. Abraham leaves the servants behind, takes Isaac with him, and Isaac is like, hey, Dad, I know we're supposed to do the sacrifice thing, but where the lamb? I see everything else. Where's the sacrifice? Where the lamb? And Abraham says to Isaac, God will provide it. Meanwhile, he is tying his son up to this altar to be sacrificed. And I'm sure God is like, okay, well, let's see how far this is going to go. Let's just see if he's willing to give his son to me. And so as Abraham is about to kill his son, sacrifice his son, God says, go tell that, tells the angel, go tell that fool don't do that. Tell him stop. So angel comes out, is like, hey, Abraham, don't you touch the child. Don't you kill your baby. Don't you kill your baby. It's a ram over there. You ain't even look over there. Go get the ram. Sacrifice the ram, not your baby. Don't sacrifice your child. So Abraham does as he's told. And God is like, all right, well, I know this is a real one right here. Abraham is a real one. He ain't hold back his son from me. He was willing to sacrifice his son from me. He was obedient. So, you know, all right, this is it. This is all you. Deal sealed. I ain't gonna ask you to do nothing else. These your peoples. This is what I promised. You're gonna get what it is. I just needed to check and make sure you ain't forget about me. Now, you know, it is what it is. You're a man of your word. You're a man of your word. I'm a God of my word. We cool. We ain't got to revisit this no more. So, time goes on, and Abraham goes home. I'm sure that was an interesting conversation to have with his wife. I almost killed her son. I almost sacrificed her son. So after that whole little thing sizzles down, he finds out that his bloodline is expanding. You know, his brother that's back in Ur has a kid, and And he has 8 sons and a granddaughter. Remember that? And his brother's concubine has some kids. So, you know, he got about what's 8 plus 4? 12 nieces and nephews. 12 is an important number to Abraham, but you know, that's neither here nor there. And then they start living life, and then a while later, Sarah dies. She's like 127, so 27 years after Isaac is born. So Isaac is about 27 years old. No, I'm sorry, she's older than that, because she was 90. Isaac about 30. Isaac about 30, 37. Some Isaac in his 30s. Sarah dies, and the locals, you know, they all really respect Abraham. Abraham's like, I got to bury my wife, and I got to bury my wife with him. So he bargains with the Hittites and the locals around there. They give him a good deal. They were like, Abraham's, you was cool, because they weren't going to charge him. Abraham was like, no, I pay you. Which is why everybody thought Abraham was cool. He was a man of peace, and he wasn't going to flim flam scam nobody. So they were like, well, since we can't give it to you, since you want to pay us, we'll hook you up. We'll give you a nice little discount. So that's what they do. And Sarah's buried in this cave on the land of the Hittites. And that is the end of Sarah, but not the end of Abraham's story. So, you know, he's an old man. He remarries. And he is living his best life now. He done everything, nearly sacrificed his son. He did everything God said, so God keeps his word. They flourishing. Okay, they hashtag blessed. And Abraham remarries this other woman whose name, give me just a second here, I'm going to find it for you, whose name is... apparently not as important as I thought it was, because I didn't write it down. Please forgive me. But he remarries this woman. They're living their life, and Isaac comes of age to get married. And he's like, he sends one of his servants out. He's like, hey, I want you to find a wife for my son. I don't want none of these local joins, okay? I don't want none of these local chicks, none of these locals. I want you to go back to where my people at. And I want you to find somebody, I want you to find specifically a woman that is a relative of mine back in Ur. And the servant was like, well, what if she don't want to come back? And and Abraham was like, listen, okay, God promised me this land. I have done a lot. I have been through a lot. He not gonna not bless us now. Okay? So go find wife, not local, outside country, relative mine. Okay? And if she don't want to come back, then we can revisit it. But I don't think God promised me this land just to for my son to have to move out there. No, this is our land. We gonna stay here, but we'll revisit if it don't work. So the servant is like, oh Lord, all right. So he prays. He's like, God, please don't fail me now. And so he tells God, hey God, for the woman that is supposed to be Isaac's wife, here's what we do. I'm gonna ask her for some water, and if she offers it to the camels too, I'm gonna know she it. So shortly after he does that, actually not even shortly after, while he's finishing up the prayer, in comes Rebecca, the answer to his prayer. Rebecca comes up and she offers him some water. Like, he sees all of these chicks, he makes it to the town, and it's at the time that all the women would be coming out to draw water, all of that. So, like I said, he did his prayer, and up comes Rebecca. And he stops Rebecca and asks her for water, and she gives him the water. She's like, hey, I can get some water for your camels too. And homeboy lights up. He's like, wait, what? Who are you, young lady? Because now he like, ooh, you fast. Okay, I get why Abraham's so into you. You fast. You fast. So Rebecca says, I'm Rebecca. I am the granddaughter of Nahor, who is Abram's brother, the one who stayed in Ur. And now the servant is like, whoo, talk about UPS speedy delivery. All right, God, okay, I'm listening. So let's just see. He presents her with the jewelry and stuff. And he's like, we got to lock this down right now. Let me go visit your people. So he goes and visits Rebecca's family. And Rebecca, he confirms that Rebecca is Nahor's granddaughter and great niece of Abraham. And they're like, hey, he describes what goes on. He talks about the prayer and how Rebecca showed up as the answer to his prayer, all that good stuff. And he's like, nah, but for real though, this is it. So does she want to come back with me? Rebecca's cool with it. The family's cool with it. And then the mother of Rebecca's mother and brother come up and they're like, let her stay for a little while. So now the servant gets worried, but he's like, I can't stay. I got to go. I can't stay. So he testing it. He's like, all right, well, this is it. Either she gonna come or she gonna go. I know what my directives are. And the family talks it out, and they're like, well, why are we just, we can let Rebecca decide. If Rebecca wants to go, she can go. And Rebecca says, peace, y'all. I'm out. I'm gonna meet me a husband. I'm gonna go meet my husband. What you talking? So this excites the servant. They head back. The servant tells Abraham and Isaac about the story. Isaac goes meets his bride. They get married in his late mother's tent, and they have their happily ever after. And the tribes and nations of Abraham, they flourish and they grow, and eventually it leads to David, which leads to Jesus, which leads to countless children of Abraham. And in his final years, Abraham gets another wife named Keturah. I did know her name, Keturah, and she has, Keturah, I believe that's it. It's spelled Keturah. And she has 6 sons, and these sons have grandchildren, and so them swimmers was swimming. And eventually let me backtrack. So his swimmers is swimming, he got kids and grandkids, all that. What he was wise enough while he was alive, he was like, all right, God said that this was for Isaac. So everything, all the land, all of the wealth and stuff, he was like, I went through all of this for my son Isaac. I was mandated by the Lord that this was all for Isaac. So I'm gonna give my other kids stuff. Okay, I'm gonna give them some stuff while I'm still alive. But anything that is left over that is of mine after I die, it belongs to Isaac. So he gave all his kids stuff and sent them on their way. Get on out of here. I don't want to hear no problem. You and your mama gone about your business. Okay, living will, take this. This is all you get. Get on out of here. I don't want no problems for my son when I die. So finally, at age 175, which, remember, he started this journey at age 75. So this has been 100-year journey for him, from promise to the day he died. At 175, he dies, and Isaac and Ishmael bury him with his wife Sarah. And that is the story of Abraham. The long journey, 100-year journey of Abraham and his promise of Isaac. And that concludes today's story time with Tay. I thank you, Biblical Edition. I thank you for joining me. I pray that you are patient with me as I try to figure out my format, my intros, all of that stuff. But I do hope that you were able to get something from the story and better understand the story of Abraham, because we hear little catchphrases and things, especially people that hear about biblical stories, but this is really all that happened in here. And like I mentioned before, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, we'll revisit that on another day, because that's a whole other beast in and of itself. But I wonder how many people who are not regular readers or fully understand and comprehend what's going on in the Bible, I wonder how many of you actually knew that Lot was the nephew of Abraham. Comment down below. And again, I thank you for your time, and I don't know yet which story we will do next, but I'm certainly open to recommendations and suggestions. So again, please put them in the comments down below, and I look forward to the next story. Until then, thanks. Bye.